We're coming to you live from our studios in Johannesburg. Thanks very much for joining us. Now we start with news just in. South African legendary actor and writer Sam Phillips has passed away. The 72-year-old was best known for his role in the drama series Soul City and more recently the telenovela The Queen. For more on this story now, let's bring in his daughter Mpumi Phillips, who joins us now via our telephone line. Mpumi, thanks very much for your time. Welcome to the program. Our sincerest and deepest condolences to you and your family. Perhaps let's begin with understanding what happened.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the condolences. So my father passed away this morning. He did pass away from COVID-related illness. As we all know, COVID for his age at 72. He had comorbidities, so he struggled, but he fought hard. He went into hospital on the 29th of December and passed away in the hospital this morning.
Oh, yeah, we certainly, once again, being reminded of the difficult times we're in, especially when there are individuals who many consider to be institutions passing on. Already many South Africans I know are being flooded with memories. How will you remember him?
I think for me, I'll remember him as the most amazing grandfather. I spoke to him last night, yesterday afternoon on the, via video call, and I asked him, what do you want me to tell your grandchildren? And he's like, tell them that your dad was a soldier, and words that I'll always be telling my children and, my other siblings' children that, their grandfather loved them very much, and that's who he was.
Yeah. We also know him having had taken on many roles, but arguably the most important role he played was that of being your father. What stands out for you when you cast back to that aspect of his life?
My father was, my father was, he was a disciplinarian, he was very strict, we lived a normal life where, he was that dad, but he was one of the most supportive as well. Anything that you had, that you were doing, he was always 100% behind you. So you knew that you could always count on him regardless for anything.
Yeah. Needless to say, he leaves an incredible legacy, not only in the performing arts, but I think for many people who he's fathered at a distance, I certainly don't think that is stretching it. What kind of legacy are you hoping that he's able to leave in the industry?
I just hope people remember, my father did a lot of, he was one of those guys who created a lot of the first, he was the first Oscar-winning actor that a lot of people don't know about. He was, one of the first actors that would appear on SABC2 back in the 80s, when, apartheid was rife. And he's actually been one of those actors that is always opening the doors for, up-and-coming actors in the industry. He always loved working with the youth. And I want that legacy to be his legacy.
Yeah. And, we often hear stories of how prominent individuals like your father often have to share themselves quite literally with the whole of South Africa. Did you have moments when it felt like that for you, that, you have to share dad? Because, some of the roles he's also had to play were very, sort of patriarchal strong men roles in South African soapies. And I think many people will certainly identify with him as their own dad.
Yeah, you did. It was the hardest when we have a family outing and, we couldn't really, it couldn't just be us, we had to be very understanding that this, he wasn't only our dad, so we had to be very understanding of that. And he's always made a way for us to feel special more than anybody else. So we never felt, that jealousy of having to share him with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And do you have an idea of how he felt about his work? And I'm only asking this because he really worked right up till the end, which is,
Yeah.
not necessarily common for people who, for whatever reason, should be, resting. Take us
Yeah.
through what he thought about the craft.
My dad was one of the most self-critical people, he's, I forget the term that it's called, the type of actor that he is, but he's one of those actors where, if he's doing a scene and he has to be punched, he actually wants, his co-actor to actually physically punch him because he didn't feel like the reaction would be real if it didn't physically happen. So he was, I remember him coming home, when I was little, and he's bruised up, and I'll be like, "What beat you up?" And I would cry because, and he was like, "No, I was acting," and I'm like, "But I thought it was supposed to be pretend."
Yeah.
And he was like, "It won't be real unless I feel it," and method actor. That's the word for it.
Absolutely.
And he hated watching himself. He hated watching himself because he was so self-critical of it. But the one thing, he was forever thinking of ideas and forever passionate, about the industry. And, and he just, I think, if COVID didn't happen, I believe that my father would have passed away on stage.
Wow.
That's how passionate he was about, the industry.
Sure. Such beautiful recollections. To say that this is a huge loss is probably a huge understatement. Of course, It's still very much the early stages, but do you have an idea of how we're likely to know about any memorials coming up, the funeral arrangements, etc.?
We'll most likely be able to convey those type of things on Monday. We're just waiting for, some of the elders in the family to make their way so that we can, discuss as a family.
Mpumi, thank you so much for being so generous at this incredibly difficult time. We certainly appreciate it. And you're coming on to Newsfeed PM. And once again, condolences to you and your family.